Okay, just want to ask everyone to make sure you put yourself on mute. So we don't hear additional noises in the background. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today to learn more about the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. My name is Angela Verzosa, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I'm also an active member of the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants and the owner and managing director of AV Immigration and Visa Services Incorporated. Just mute. Okay, so for today, we will use the first 25 minutes to cover the RCIP program, or again, the Rural Community Immigration Pilot Program. And then we will use 5 minutes to maybe answer some of the questions and then use the remaining 5 minutes to wrap up for today. We'll also focus today on standard eligibility criteria to provide information. But if you want, say, a specific or personalized discussion about your case, we can have that scheduled separately. We do offer free consultation at AV Immigration, so you can just book an appointment separately with us, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and start. Sorry, I'm hearing a lot of echo right now. So I'm gonna double check who's not on mute them. Okay. So a quick intro about us at AV Immigration. We do specialize in a variety of pathways to permanent residency, including caregiver programs, express entry, family sponsorship, and provincial nomination programs. Our mission really is to provide clear guidance and tailored strategies to make your Canadian dreams a reality. So, again, whether you're just beginning your immigration journey or navigating specific challenges, we're here to help you every step of the way. So, to give everyone a bit of a context as well, I'm speaking to you today from the beautiful community of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, where our practice is proudly based. For those unfamiliar, we're located about a 7-hour drive north of Toronto and just 30 minutes from the International Bridge connecting us to Michigan in the United States. We're also one of the participating communities for RCIP, so this program is very near and dear to me as a local here in the Sioux. Okay, so let's now go ahead and dive in. This program, as we all know, replaces the former Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, or what they call RNIP, which again focused on helping smaller communities in Canada to attract skilled immigrants. So the RCIP pathway supports rural communities, and it is important. It is an important option for skilled workers looking specifically to settle in regions outside major urban areas. It is set to launch again. It has launched early, like late January. However, at this point, we're still at a point where we're still trying to wait for all of the participating communities to release their individual criteria for the selection that they're going to do for the invites. Okay. So here, employers in all of the communities participating. So as you can see, all of the communities that are going to participate for RCIP are located in the right side of the screen. These are all of the list right now. Now, other than knowing the participating communities, you also need to take note that when you're going to apply for RCIP, you have to make sure that the employer is a designated employer. So a lot of inquiries lately are coming in asking, how do I know? Is there a list of designated employers? Where can I find that out? So at this point, either your employer is a designated employer or they're actually willing to become designated. So the process is very simple. They just need to reach out to the city, the local community. So speaking from the process in the previous years, that's how it was done. And then the city will guide your employer in how to become designated. So based on the regulation, designated employers are expected to go through some necessary training, specifically, some intercultural training, some settlement training to help ensure that the foreign national that they will be supporting is, again, well supported as part of the process. Okay. So we'll talk about the application process. So for RCIP, the application process is divided into two stages. So the stage one is meeting the community requirements, including genuine job offer from a designated employer, which we will talk about more in a bit. And then the stage two level or process where, the applicant is expected to meet the federal requirement at that point, such as all of the work experience, language proficiency, and settlement funds, which again, we will tackle in a bit as well. So for stage one application, what we're trying to do here is to get the certificate of recommendation from the city. And then once we get that certificate of recommendation, that is the document that we need to move on to stage two, which is the federal application to IRCC. And then when we're done with stage two, that the goal for that is again for us to get the permanent residency. Okay. So we'll talk about the stage one application first. So the first one is that the job offer requirement must be met. So it must be genuine, full-time and permanent, and must align with tier categories under NOC. And again, employer must be a designated employer under RCIP. So some would ask, hey, so does that mean what does it mean when it says full-time and permanent? So it means it's indeterminate. There's no end date to it. So some of the employment job offer that you have might be full-time, but then it has an end date to it. So let's say you're allowed to start at a specific date, and then the employment is only valid up until a certain date. So for those specific contracts, that's not unfortunately meeting the requirement for RCIP. Okay. For the work experience, the requirement is to have at least 1 year of work experience. So for this specific area, the 1 year full-time work experience doesn't need to be the work experience that would start from when you start to work in the designated employer or in the community. So which means any work experience gained in the last 3 years or obtained in the last 3 years can be used, whether that experience have been gained within the community, outside the community, or outside Canada. So anything for as long as it's obtained in the last 3 years would qualify, okay? Now, just so you're aware as well, there are specific rules around the type of job offer that you're accepting. So for instance, if you are accepting a job offer under, say, tier 2 category or occupation, if you're accepting a tier 2 work, the work experience that can qualify you for that job offer are experiences gained in tiers 1, 2, 3, or 4. So this means you're not limited to, getting exactly the same work experience. So say, for example, you are a manager, you're a construction manager. It does not mean that you need to find another construction manager role. So say a construction manager is a tier 0 role. So for as long as you get any tier 0 or 1 job offer, you can make use of that tier 0 experience right here. Okay. Language requirements. So for language requirements, it also would depend on the type of occupation that you get from your job offer. So if it's tier 0 or 1, you need to have CLB 6, 2 and 3, CLB 5, and tiers 4 and 5, CLB 4. So just know that this is not average. This is a requirement per ability. So it means you have to have CLB 4 for reading, speaking, listening, and writing for you to qualify. Work experience. So for work experience of the applicant, there are certain exceptions, specifically if you meet any of the requirements that you can see in your screen right now. So if you are a full-time enrollment during the entire program, if you did that, you had a credential obtained within the last 18 months before applying, you're exempted from that 1 year work experience as well. Just know that, and then here, if it's master's or doctoral program, even if it's less than 2 years, for as long as you have resided in the community throughout the program, then you would qualify for the 1 year work experience exemption as well. Now, for all other programs, it has to be 2+ years. Okay, so we have, I have received a lot of questions around this area, whether a 1 year program plus another 1 year program would qualify for RCIP. So unfortunately, that is not meeting the requirement for RCIP. It has to be a program with a duration of 2 years or more. So it cannot be a 1+1 program, unfortunately. Okay. And then also another clarification here for applicants with 1 year of work experience in NOC 301, which is a registered nurse. You can meet the requirement for the job offer part, even if you will get a job offer for a practical nurse, which is a tier 3, or a home support worker for a tier 4. Okay. Settlement funds. So, fortunately, if you are already working and in Canada, you are not required to provide settlement funds. However, since RCIP is open for candidates outside Canada as well, they have this specific ruling. So the amount of money that you can see here is actually 50% of the LICO amount, or the low income cutoff requirement. So if you look at the express entry, that's providing you the full amount, but here it's just 50% of that. And also, it would depend on the number of family members that you will bring in with you. So as you can see, if you're single, then the amount required is 9,470. However, if you are a family of 4, meaning yourself as an applicant, you have a spouse and 2 children, that is a total of 4 family members. So then you'll be required to provide $17,598. So that's the brief overview for stage 1. I will talk quickly about stage 2, and then we'll move on to answering some of your questions. For stage 2, okay, so now at this point, after submitting your application to the city to get the certificate of recommendation, once we have that document, we're ready to proceed with the submission of the application for permanent residency directly to IRCC. So we will be going to the PR portal, or the permanent residency portal, to submit that. So I just want to say to everyone that when you're submitting your permanent residency application, you are not required to hire a consultant to do it for you. However, if you feel not that you're not confident, and or you don't have the time to do it, or you're needing some guidance to actually do it, or an expert assistance, then you may do so. However, for the ones that feel that they can do it themselves, you are rightfully able to do it on your own. Okay, so just go to the permanent residence portal, as you can see, and then once you're here, you'll be automatically provided with the forms and documents once you've selected that you're applying for under the economic program for rural community immigration pilot program. And then this is just a reminder that for all of the submissions, you need to make sure that you have all of your documents translated to either English or French. So don't just provide the automatic translation. Here are the guidelines for that. You need to include the original document, and then the certified copy of the original document, and then the translation of the original document. Okay. Now, the affidavit is required if the one that translated the document is not a certified translator. Okay. But that's just optional. If the person that translated it is certified, then you just need to worry about the first, second, and third requirement here. Okay, so this is just a reminder on who can translate. So as you can see at the bottom, your family members cannot do it. We cannot do it for you. That is just to make sure that we avoid any conflict of interest as part of the process. And then these forms right here, these forms are automatically populated now once you've selected the actual application in the permanent residency portal. So what's going to happen is, it's automatically going to be appearing in your application portal. These are all in digital approach now. It's not like you're going to have to download IMM 0008. No, it's just going to be a step process where you're going to be asked questions. You're going to have to provide answers to it. And you just need to supply information directly to the website. So these are the default information. Background declaration usually involves declaring the past 10 years activities that you have. So whether you're employed, you're unemployed, you're studying, you're traveling somewhere, all of that has to be declared here. Okay. Now I want to focus on the key forms that is part of this specific program, which is the RCIP document checklist, the offer of employment, and the Schedule 1 RCIP immigration document. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you guys. Let me just see. So the document checklist is provided in the website as well, in the portal, if you log in and start your own application. So it'll show you the list of the different information that had to be included as part of the application. So that includes, again, just like what I said, all of the generic immigration form application that should be included as part of it. Most specifically for the background declaration, just like what I said, past 10 years have to be included, no gaps. You don't want to have any gaps in there because you're going to have some issues with the review of your application later on. And then the offer of employment. So this specific form right here, this is specifically a form for your employer, and it looks like this. Okay, one second. Oops. You know what? One second. Just give me a second. I'm going to separate all three because it's a little difficult in my screen right now. So the offer of employment immigration form would look like this. So this is a form that you would give to your employer to fill out. So normally this is something that your human resources department should fill out for you. So it involves asking information about, the business, the type of business, their field, certain information about, the address, their website, all that, the size of the business, the description of their business activity. So when your employer supports your application, at a minimum, they need to be operating within the local community for at least at a minimum of 2 years. So it cannot be just a pop-up business for this year. All of a sudden, there's this new business operating and wanting to support employees for RCIP. They need to have demonstrated that they have been operating within the bounds of the community for at least at a minimum 2 years. Okay. Primary contact information. So again, usually this is your human resource person, and then the details of the job that you're doing as an applicant, and then your duties, and then some information about the applicant, which is information about yourself. Okay, so again, this is everything that your human resources should fill out. And then at the end of the form, there are some questions about declarations specifically to the employer, specifically certifying that yes, they're actively engaged in the business within the community. Yes, they're compliant with all of the regulation for the employment. Because again, if there's an Employee Standard Act violation, from the employer, they are not eligible to support any of their employees' application for RCIP. And then all of the other information here, they just need to check this and then provide their name and signature, and then they will have to provide you this form. Okay. The other form that is also important is this form, which is the Schedule 1 form, or what I call the applicant form. So for this specific information, you can fill this out yourself. So you can put down all of your information, passport information and stuff. The offer of employment, just, you can provide a copy of the actual offer that you got from the employer and then fill this out, making sure that the information here is consistent with your job offer information. And then here you provide your language proficiency result, which should be consistent with the actual language report that you received, and then your work experience. So your work experience here, you're just going to be providing information about the past 3 years. There's no need for you to provide anything beyond that because that's not relevant in terms of RCIP application. Because for RCIP, remember earlier we said that only any work experience obtained in the last 3 years would be relevant and would be qualified for this. So just include that. Your education, so if you are internationally educated or you've obtained your education credential abroad, then you have to make sure that you get that assessed by the designated institution in Canada. So that includes for instance, World Education Services, which is one of the popular ones, and ICAS. So they can assess the equivalent rate of that specific education that you've finished outside as compared to Canadian education. So you can get that equivalency and then put that here and then all of the information. Settlement funds, as we said earlier, there's no need for this if you're already working and in Canada. So you can just attest that, yes, you understand that, and then you put in your signature. Okay. So if you go back to the other document checklist, it will then provide you all of the other information that's needed. So other than the applicant form, which is what we have covered just now, the recommendation certificate, this one is going to come from the city. So after they process your application, they will give you that. And then this information, the travel, the additional information for family, these are all additional forms that are pre-populated in the permanent residency portal when you start your application. So it should be already there. And then right here, should you decide to hire someone to handle your application for you, you should include a use of representative form as part of it to grant them access and to notify IRCC that they are allowed to act on your behalf for your application. And then finally, travel documents and passports. I will be covering this in my slide. So let me just go back to my slide. Proof of languages. So we've spoken about this quickly. So just make sure that the result is actually 2 years old or less. Any report that had been taken more than that is invalid. So you're going to have to retake your examination to get a more recent one. So these are some of the testing that's qualified for the proof of language: CELPIP, IELTS, PTE, and then for the French part, it's TEF Canada and TCF Canada. Okay. Now, this is just a quick snapshot of what the chart would look like. So so CELPIP is quite straightforward. If you're a 4, then that's CLB 4. If you're 5, then it's 5. However, for IELTS, it's not the same. So as you can see, For reading, for you to meet the CLB4 requirement, you need to have a reading score of at least 3.5. And for listening, you have to have at least 4.5 for it to be considered CLB4. So this is where I encounter a lot of questions because some applicants think that if IELTS would show 4, then that's CLB4. So that's not accurate. Make sure you refer to the actual chart located in IRCC website. So this one, I just got this from the IRCC website. Make sure you refer to that. Also, the average CLB in IELTS is also not your average CLB score. So it's not the same. There is a chart in IRCC that would show you how to calculate that as well. Okay. PTU core is the same, and then TF Canada and TCF Canada is also the same. They have their own measurement. Okay. Education credential, we've touched this briefly. So as you can see, World Education Services, or WES, is one of the designated institution where you can get it. Again, a reminder at the bottom that the report must be less than 5 years old for it to be valid. Settlement funds, we've seen this earlier. Again, not required if you're already working and in Canada. Now, proof of relevant experience in this section, these are some the information that should be included as part of your work reference letters. So you need to make sure that the reference letter has your position title. It should be written in a valid letterhead from the actual employer. Other than the position title, it should also include the amount of wage or salary that you get, the total number of hours worked in a week, your duties and responsibilities, any benefits that you're getting as part of the work. So these are the minimum information that should be in there. And then other relevant work experience proof that you can use are, the original job offer that you signed when you joined the company, and your continuous pay statements or pay stubs that you get month on month or every 2 weeks or every week, depending on the pay cycle of your company. Passport and travel document, just make sure it's always valid, at least a year, 12 months valid before any of the application would start, to make sure there's no issues. And then identity and civil documents, so very important, especially if you're applying as a family. Birth certificates of the children showing that you're the parent. Also marriage certificate demonstrating your relationship with your spouse. Or if you're not married, you can put down the declaration, the statutory declaration for common law union to support the relationship. Police certificates, again, always have to be valid for at least 6 months. However, in most cases, if you have an old police certificate and you haven't traveled back to that country, IRCC would still accept it. So say, for example, you are, say, from the Philippines, you left the Philippines 2 years ago, you reordered and renewed your police certificate, that's NBI certificate for the Philippines. If you renewed it online and have it sent to you, even if it's more than 6 months, or even if it's expired already, you can still use it as part of your application for as long as you did not travel back to the home country. And again, note that the requirement is you have to make sure you have a police certificate for every single country that you have lived in for more than 6 months. Digital photos, again, there is a specific requirement for this. You can find it in IRCC website. For fee payments, I'll show you. When you apply for permanent residency, you're going to be required to pay $1,525. That includes $950 for processing fee and the right of permanent residence for $575. For a spouse, it's the same. And then if you'd like to include your child, it's going to be $260. Biometrics is $85, and for family, $170. Optional work permit is also available, so it's going to be valid for 2 years. This is especially valuable information for those people with nearing expiration for work permit that you have. So while waiting for the processing of your actual permanent residency application for RCIP, if your work permit is about to expire, you can actually get a work permit support letter from your employer, and then you can take that document and apply directly to IRCC to extend your stay. The only difference is if you use a work permit support letter, what's going to happen is from, say, for example, if you have an open work permit right now, it's going to become a closed work permit. So meaning you're only going to be allowed to work to the employer that have provided you support until the decision of your permanent residency application is provided. In addition to that, other than having a closed work permit, there's going to be a restriction in your work permit that you're going to be only allowed to work within the community that supported you. So if you're from Sudbury, then you're only restricted to work within Sudbury, or if you're from the Sioux, then it's only going to be from the Sioux. So this is just additional information for some of the packages that we have at AV Immigration, but you can definitely reach out at any time to know more about the additional support packages that we have. And that is pretty much all of the items that I have for today. So I'm going to check the chat button right now and see if there are any questions from anyone. Or anyone can, if you have any questions, you can ask. So is the student work experience counted for 1560 hours? Okay. So for rural community immigration pilot, unfortunately, any hours earned as a student is not counted. So the only immigration program that counts student hours right now is the Atlantic Immigration Program. With RCIP, it's not counted. Will there be a list of designated employers for the Sioux? So unfortunately, we don't have that list, and I don't believe last year it was published by the city. The again, the clue here is your employer must be designated or they're willing to become designated. So specifically in the Sioux, the process is fairly simple. You just email labor force in the Sioux, which is Lakeisha, the representative, and then she will be able to guide the employers through the process. So can you go back to the slides with the prices of your services? Sure, I can post that right now. Let me just continue to check the chat while I have this here. So if the student work experience not counted, when the count start? After graduation, after the completion of the program, Michael. So sometimes the graduation would kick in super late, like maybe a few more months after you completed a program. So the count is from when you completed the program, not the graduation. Okay. My permit is expiring in this March and I'm already working in the community. Can I apply unapplied okay. So yes, if you are on, so implied status is actually an old term. So in immigration, we call that maintained status. So if you are in maintained status, you can definitely apply. If you are selected to move forward, you just need to prove that an application has been submitted before your previous permit expired through, providing proof of the application, like whatever acknowledgement that you received from IRCC. Okay. Does the statutory declaration of common law union has expiration, or can we use the old ones? So the statutory declaration for common law, the purpose of that is to prove the continuity of your relationship. So if it's an old document, I do not recommend reusing it.
So parang mga ahente 'tong tutulong sa kung gusto mong magbayad.
Miss
Andito
Marites, do you have a question? Sorry, Miss Marites, do you have a question? No, I don't believe so. Okay, so yes, you can you for any documents, I wouldn't recommend reusing any of those. Anything that's older than 3 months should be refreshed. Okay. Is it necessary to gain 1 year work experience to complete 1560 hours? So the maximum when you're calculating your hours, you can only calculate a maximum of 30 hours a week. So for you to gain that 1560, it has to be at least at a minimum 1 year. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think I got all of the questions covered right now. So I would go ahead and wrap quickly. So thank you so much for joining us today. And once again, we do offer free consultation at AV Immigration. So if there are any specific concerns or questions that you would like, you may reach us at any point so we can book an appointment with you. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone's time today, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar. Have a great rest of your evening.